Okay, are we live? Okay, looks like we're live on the air. Okay, and Mark, get set, go. Good afternoon, y'all. This is the man in the black mask, and he's back with the story of a lifetime. And when I heard this story, this was like WrestleMania inside Rikers Island, man. The Rikers Island jail cell. This is like WrestleMania. I know y'all thinking about WWE, but this is not WWE, but this is Rikers Island. Rikers Island gang jumped 11 New York City corrections officers. Wow, this is going to be the talk of the town, because they're all gang members. 11 of them are bloods, by the way. Okay. And yeah, this article from the Daily News I'm going to read and share it with y'all, because a lot of y'all are going to be talking about this from here on out. Broken bones, cracked ribs, concussion among injuries for up to 11 New York City corrections officers in gang-related attacks at Rikers Island. Holy shit. Holy cow, man. How the hell could something like this happen? You know what I mean? Inside of a jail cell at Rikers Island. Now, I'm sure this pandemic has driven nearly every inmate in CL like crazy, man. I admit it's the rage, man. It won't be long for somebody gets killed up in that jail cell, but it has happened before. A gang-driven ambush gave 4 Rikers Island corrections officers broken bones, cracked ribs, and bruised eyes, and was one of 5 attacks at one jail this week that injured at least 11 officers, the Daily News learned. You see? I want to show you this photo too. This is of what they took of one of the victims, one of the jailers. Look, see that? How they got him all stretched up and shit. I think you can see the blood in the background. I don't know, but either way, this man is fucked up, man. This is just one of the victims. Yeah, that is blood. Yeah, that is blood. I'm gonna show you one more time for good measure, though, so you know what I'm talking about. See that? Where my finger is? That's the blood right there. Okay? See that? Right by his head. That's blood. Okay. A correction officer suffered a concussion and needed 5 staples in his head after he was punched in the face March 22nd by an inmate at the Robert and Davering complex on Rikers Island. That's where most teenagers get housed at, I think. I last heard it was for adolescents. 13 inmates, 11 of them identified as members of the Bloods, attacked 4 corrections officers Tuesday night at the Robert and Davering complex, according to an internal incident report obtained by the news. Wow. One suffered a broken right hand, cracked ribs, and other injuries after being struck with a fire extinguisher, the report said. All 4 officers were taken to Mount Sinai, Queens, where they were treated for their injuries before being released. You see, this is a photo of one of the other officers, too. See that? You see how his hand is all swollen and shit? They broke it. As you can see, it's all swollen. See, when you break a bone, whether in your foot or your leg, it's going to swell up, That guy got a fat hand indeed. Hope he can still use it. Photo of an officer's broken hand. The officer was injured on Tuesday when 13 inmates, 11 of whom were identified as members of the Bloods, attacked 4 officers at the Robert and Davering complex on Rikers Island. The onslaught began at around 10:30 p.m. today. The Bloods member Nasser Green gained access to a control room from where jail workers monitor security. Green buzzed the door that let other inmates enter the area, the report said. The detainees began to throw closed fist punches at 4 officers before a probe team was called in to quell the chaos. The brutal attack was one of a series of assaults this week on staffers at the Davering complex, a Rikers jail long plagued by gang violence. Now I'm going to show you some more photos, too, of some of the wounded officers, too. Okay, I'm going to show you this. Okay, this is a photo of a corrections officer who was attacked by an inmate at the Robert and Davering complex. This is it. See all their faces, how they're all met up and shit? Yo, it was like WrestleMania. The first incident at around 5:30 p.m. on March 19th involved 13 Bloods members, 6 of whom were also part of the Tuesday ambush, and injured at least 3 officers, according to another internal report. In that incident, Green and another inmate punched an officer in the face as other inmates began hurling objects at correction department staffers, prompting two officers to spray the assailants with a chemical agent. Now, if I had to guess what that chemical agent was, it had to have been OC spray. I wonder if any SEALs use bear spray. You know what I'm saying? Just like what them assholes did at the U.S. Capitol. How one of them attacked this officer with bear spray, and he later suffered a fatal asthma attack and died at work. Anyway, backtrack to Rikers. The second incident was March 20th at around 1:15 a.m. when 5 inmates, including 4 who were part of the March 19 melee, broke free from their officer escorts, ran down a corridor, and removed their flex cuffs. That scuffle injured at least one officer. 2 days later, on March 22nd, a correction officer suffered a concussion after Crips member David Young closed his fist and punched the guard on the right side of his head, according to an internal report. The blow sent the officer into a wall where he hit the left side of his skull, hence concussion. The officer was taken to Elmhurst Hospital, where he wound up with 5 staples to his head. Another officer was also injured in the fracas. Now, Elmhurst had a big COVID-19 surge, last year. The infection rate was awfully high down there. A 5th assault reported on Thursday injured 1 officer. Corrections Officers Benevolent Association President Benny Bosco Jr. slammed Mayor de Blasio and Correction Department Commissioner Cynthia Brand for vowing to end punitive segregation by more than 23% over last year. And instead of allowing us to separate violent offenders who committed, the administration wants to eliminate punitive segregation completely so that assaulted inmates can be emboldened to terrorize our members and nonviolent inmates, said Bosco. Commissioner Brand and Mayor de Blasio continue to condone these acts of violence, and by doing nothing to stop these assaults, they are complicit. The safety of those who work in our facilities is always our first priority, said Correction Department spokesman Peter Thorne. Quote, any attack is reprehensible, and we are pursuing rearrest of the individuals involved, end quote. Ain't that some shit, man? I know everybody's going crazy, man. Let me tell you, this whole punitive segregation thing is probably going to be challenged in court. But I'm with the people that want to end punitive segregation because all of you remember Khalid Browder. He was the innocent youth that was accused of allegedly stealing a backpack, and he spent like 3 years in isolation. Okay, and to make matters worse, he was jumped by several inmates and guards on Rikers Island on multiple occasions. And then by the time he got out in 2013, after 3 years stuck on the island starting from 2010, he just went crazy after that. He lost his edge, and he ultimately hung himself from his mother's apartment, suspended from an AC. And now the mother's dead, God rest her soul. The stress of seeing her son die so violently must have really fucking got to her. But like I said, I'm glad Khalid Browder made a difference while he was still alive. And he's still going to make a difference in death. And if I had to guess, had Khalid Browder still been alive, he would probably be an activist. And he would support Black Lives Matter. He would be a stanch advocate for the wrongfully accused if he hadn't have took his own life. Okay, now a lot of you is probably thinking the same thing. And I hope I'm not alone in this. But I'm glad Browder make a difference both in life and in death. Okay? And I'm glad solitary confinement is coming to an end, and that they're going to do alternatives to punitive segregation, such as risk management assessment, And in my opinion, I think all violent inmates should be placed in specialized housing. If mental illness is the root cause of their behavior, then they should be put in a prison hospital. That's the way I see it, because some of them have mental health problems that cause them to just act out, sometimes for no reason. And I know a lot of you understand that, because most inmates that are violent have mental illness or drug issues. You know that, and I know that. Because I told you about this Peter Rodriguez cat that took like this physician hostage on Rikers Island. This thing threatened to smash his face in with that fire extinguisher. Because he had just stabbed to death a roommate over unpaid rent. Because I told you what Peter Rodriguez did at the North Infirmary Command Center. It was either there or Anna M. Cross, but he was in one of them. So, like I said, man, people be acting out for the worst reasons. And people spazzing out nowadays, especially with this pandemic. How could I say this? Pandemic, violence, mental health, trifecta. A lot of these inmates got the trifecta. You can tell. And some of the staff, too. I read a few days ago that, this guard punched another staff member at Rikers Island during an argument over his work shift. I'm going to share that with you at some point. Okay? If not today, definitely tomorrow. But I'm going to share it with y'all at some point. Because I got something to say about that, too. Okay? To me, Rikers Island, it's like a battleground in the making. Because if some of you have ever been to Rikers, I'm sure y'all can relate. Some of you might have seen some really bizarre shit up at Rikers Island while you were locked up. You might have seen people get stabbed, get cut, get beat up, get their heads and their faces caved in, what have you. Luckily, I wasn't in jail for long. Luckily, it was 3 days for me. But when I think of Cleve Browder, all I could do is cry. Why? Because that could have been me. I could have been Cleve Browder before Cleve Browder. And having spent 3 years in isolation and have staffers and inmates fuck with me for no reason, drive me even crazier. I mean, come on, man. That's just not right. How do you normalize and justify shit like that? Let alone what they did to Mr. Browder. Okay? I think they all killed Browder. Even though he didn't commit suicide in jail, he committed suicide at his own house. But I still feel that the inmates and the staff were complicit in Mr. Browder's death. And that's the way I see it. They was all complicit. They knew what he was going through, and they took advantage of him. That's why he tried to kill himself so many times while he was locked up. And a few more times after he got out. And because of them, he was in and out of the psych ward. And then he finally succeeded in killing himself a week after he turned 22. Jesus, Harry Christ, man. Now, due to a recent surge in violence, this could put an end to the Close Rikers Island project. And this whole impunity segregation thing, that too is going to come into question. That will probably be challenged in court. That's what I think. But I know a whole bunch of shit is going to happen in the coming years. So anyway, thank you for allowing me to read and share this story with y'all because politics matter in the age of the pandemic. That's why the man in the black mask signed up for this channel to voice his political views on the current events that tend to hit close to home. Some of those events involve us and the things that we went through as not only children but as adults, especially with the surge of hate crimes going on, targeting the Asians and the blacks alike. So yeah, Asians are colored people just like African Americans. So whenever I hear about those anti-Asian attacks, I think of myself as a minority because I am within that minority circle. Okay? Just like some of you that watch my network. Some of you are minorities. And this is the time for each other. You know what I'm saying? I say stop the hate. So anyway, thank you for listening to the Man in the Black Mask. Don't forget to like and subscribe and drop a question underneath the screen and tell me what you think about this bizarre WrestleMania incident at Rikers Island. And if possible, I'll respond. But again, do it with respect. I can deal with your reason for as long as I can deal with your logic. Until then, good luck, be well, and have a good day. If I have another story to bring out, I'll get it out to you, if I can find it. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for your service.